The stars belonged to the Kether Dominion. That was the belief of every citizen who lived under their banners. For centuries, their fleets had crossed the void, conquering world after world. Their banners flew on thousands of colonies, their laws spread across half the galaxy, and their armies marched without fear. Wherever their ships appeared, resistance was crushed, and the conquered were forced to bow before them. The Dominion was vast, proud, and confident that nothing could stand against its might. The rulers of the Dominion were not foolish. They kept strict order, watching every corner of their realm. They allowed no rivals to rise, no challengers to gather strength. The worlds they conquered were stripped of weapons, their cultures bent to serve the Dominion, and their people made to work in silence. For generations, this order had held. Their admirals told themselves it would last forever. Yet among the many worlds of the galaxy, there were always whispers. Somewhere beyond the borders of the core territories, on the edges of the star maps, small powers survived. Some hid in remote systems. Some bent the knee but resisted in spirit. And one world, small and often overlooked, began to draw attention. That world was Terra. Terra was not remarkable at first glance. It was not rich in minerals, nor was it the center of trade. The Kether Dominion had taken little notice of it when they expanded in that direction. Their scouts marked it down as another planet filled with natives who would eventually be brought to heel. It seemed unimportant compared to the great industrial planets or the wealthy colonies closer to the heart of the Empire. But something about Terra was different. When the Dominion demanded tribute, the humans sent little. When the Dominion demanded submission, the humans replied with delay and excuses. At first, this amused the governors who ruled the frontier. They believed that once a fleet was dispatched, the matter would be settled quickly. The Dominion had fought stronger enemies before and had always won. A single planet could not matter. The first fleet sent to Terra expected no real battle. The ships carried the banners of the Dominion and the discipline of centuries. They were armed with weapons capable of burning cities from orbit. Their commanders had crushed rebellions before. They believed the humans would surrender as soon as the fleet appeared. Instead, the fleet faced something it had not expected. The humans fought back. Their ships were smaller, less advanced, and fewer in number, but they did not retreat. They launched daring attacks, striking at weak points the Dominion had not considered. They used speed, coordination, and strange tactics that the Dominion had never seen in battle. The fight, which should have ended in hours, stretched into days. The commanders of the Dominion grew irritated. They considered the humans reckless. They believed the humans were only delaying the inevitable. Yet when the fleet finally withdrew to repair, they had lost more ships than expected. The humans had not won outright, but they had shown something rare. They had shown defiance. Whispers began to spread in the Dominion fleets. Some dismissed the humans as fools who would soon be broken. Others warned that the humans were different. They fought with a unity that other conquered worlds had lacked. They did not scatter when threatened. They did not divide when pressured. Instead, they stood together. That unity made them dangerous. The governors sent reports back to the capital. They insisted that more fleets would be needed, but they also claimed the humans were not a real threat. To the Great Council of the Dominion, Terra was still a minor world. It was an annoyance, not a danger. Other matters seemed more urgent. The Empire was vast, and 1,000 other systems demanded attention. Terra could wait. But while the Dominion waited, Terra prepared. The humans did not forget the first battle. They studied every clash, every mistake, and every success. They worked to build better weapons, stronger ships, and smarter tactics. Unlike the Dominion, who believed victory was their right, the humans believed survival had to be earned. That belief made them patient, determined, and inventive. The spark of resistance that began on Terra did not fade. It grew stronger with each skirmish, with each story of courage that spread from soldier to soldier and from family to family. A legend began to take shape, not of heroes or kings, but of a people who refused to kneel. And far across the galaxy, in the halls of power, the rulers of the Dominion paid little attention. They could not imagine that a single world could ever matter. They had crushed greater foes, and they saw no reason to fear a small frontier planet. Yet history often turns not on the strong, but on the determined. The Kether Dominion believed its rule would last forever. They believed no force could shake their empire. But the humans of Terra were already proving that belief false. The endless empire had begun to face its first true test. The Dominion did not forget Terra. Although the governors claimed it was a minor nuisance, the loss of ships during the first encounter was an insult to their pride. The Great Council ordered another fleet to be sent. This time it was larger, commanded by Admiral Corven, a leader known for his strict discipline. He believed the humans would crumble once faced with true force. When the Dominion fleet arrived, its arrival was impossible to ignore. Hundreds of ships appeared in orbit, casting shadows across the sky. Their weapons glowed, and their engines roared as they moved into formation. Admiral Corven sent a single message to the humans. It demanded surrender, obedience, and tribute. He gave them 1 day to decide. The humans met in their council chambers. Leaders from across Terra argued over what to do. Some wanted to negotiate, to stall for time. Others insisted they must resist, for surrender would mean slavery and the loss of freedom. The debate lasted through the night, but in the end, the decision was clear. Terra would not surrender. When the Dominion received the answer, Admiral Corven was enraged. He believed the humans were arrogant, blinded by hope. He gave the order to strike. The skies over Terra lit with fire as the Dominion fleet descended. But the humans were ready. They had studied the enemy's tactics from the first encounter. They had hidden weapons across their orbit, disguised as abandoned satellites and debris. As the Dominion ships moved closer, the hidden weapons activated, firing beams of energy and guided missiles. Several Dominion cruisers were destroyed before they even reached the human defenses. The humans also launched their own ships. They were smaller than the Dominion vessels, but they moved quickly and struck with precision. Instead of facing the enemy head-on, the humans darted in and out of the fight, hitting weak spots and retreating before the larger ships could lock onto them. It was a style of fighting the Dominion was not used to. Admiral Corven grew furious. He sent his forces in every direction, trying to surround the humans. But the more he tried, the more his fleet became stretched and uncoordinated. The humans exploited this. Small groups of ships attacked isolated Dominion vessels, overwhelming them with concentrated fire. The battle became chaotic, and for the first time in many years, the Dominion fleet lost its sense of order. On the ground, the people of Terra watched the skies burn. Families gathered in shelters, listening to the reports of the battle. Fear filled their hearts, but also pride. For the first time, they were standing against an empire that had crushed countless others. For the first time, they believed they might have a chance. After days of fighting, Admiral Corven had to make a decision. His fleet had taken heavy losses. Many of his ships were damaged, supplies were running low, and morale was breaking. He had expected quick victory, but instead he faced endless frustration. The humans had not only resisted but had forced his fleet to retreat. Corven withdrew from Terra's orbit, leaving behind wreckage and burning pride. The humans cheered as the enemy vanished into the void. It was not a full victory, but it was enough to show them that the Dominion was not unstoppable. The resistance had survived, and survival was the seed of hope. Word of the battle spread quickly. The Dominion tried to control the news, but whispers could not be silenced. In distant colonies, people spoke in secret about the humans who had resisted. In the fleets, soldiers whispered about the strange courage of a small frontier world. The empire, for all its strength, had been shaken. On Terra, preparations continued. Engineers worked tirelessly to repair ships and build new ones. Scientists studied captured wreckage, learning from Dominion technology and turning it against them. Every battle made the humans stronger, teaching them lessons the Dominion refused to learn. The Dominion, on the other hand, remained arrogant. Many of its leaders dismissed the defeat as a temporary setback. They claimed the humans had only won because of luck and surprise. They promised that with greater fleets and greater force, Terra would fall like all the others. Few in the council truly understood that something far greater was beginning. The humans were not simply defending their world. They were becoming united in a way that few species had ever achieved. Every loss they endured, every ship destroyed, every life sacrificed only made them more determined. They did not fight for conquest, for tribute, or for glory. They fought for survival and freedom. That difference would prove more powerful than the Dominion realized. As the Dominion planned its next move, the humans prepared for a war that would decide their future. They were no longer seen as a minor world. They were now an enemy. An enemy that would not bow, no matter the size of the fleet sent against them. The first true contact between Terra and the Dominion had ended in resistance. It would not be the last. The galaxy had begun to change, and the seeds of rebellion had been planted. Months passed after the retreat of Admiral Corven's fleet. Terra did not rest. The humans knew the Dominion would return, stronger than before. Every shipyard was busy, every factory worked without pause, and every scientist searched for ways to make their weapons sharper. The people of Terra lived with the shadow of war, but instead of breaking, they became stronger. Out among the stars, whispers began to grow. Traders spoke of new Terran ship designs, larger and more advanced than before. Pilots who had seen the battles firsthand claimed the humans were building something enormous. They spoke of a vessel so vast it dwarfed ordinary cruisers, a ship that could stand against an entire fleet. At first, these stories were dismissed. The Dominion's governors laughed at the idea. To them, humans were a small people from a small planet, barely capable of defending themselves. The thought that they could build a battleship larger than any the Dominion possessed seemed impossible. Yet the rumors did not fade. They spread across colonies, across fleets, and across every border where the Dominion touched. The truth was that the humans were indeed building something extraordinary. In the great shipyards of Terra's orbit, a skeleton of steel began to take shape. It was not a simple warship but a project that united the entire planet. Engineers worked day and night, soldiers trained for the crew positions, and leaders poured every resource into its creation. The humans called it the Resolute. From the beginning, the Resolute was more than a weapon. It was a promise. It promised that Terra would not be broken, that the Dominion could not crush them, and that humanity would endure. For the workers who built it, every piece of metal welded, every circuit connected, was an act of defiance. For the leaders who oversaw it, every delay overcome was a step toward freedom. The Dominion's spies tried to confirm the rumors. They sent scouts into the system, but few returned. Those who did reported strange shapes in the shipyards and massive energy readings. Their reports were ridiculed by high command, but the stories still made their way through the ranks. Even the proudest admiral felt a flicker of unease. Within the Dominion fleet, officers began to speak in private. They recalled how the humans had fought differently, how they had turned weaknesses into strengths. If such a people truly built a battleship larger than anything known, it would not be a mere rumor. It would be a threat. Meanwhile, the humans continued their work. Progress was slow, for they lacked the vast resources of the Dominion, but what they lacked in size they made up for with determination. They used every trick, every invention, every piece of captured technology. The design of the Resolute was unlike anything else in the galaxy. It carried weapons the Dominion had never faced and defenses that no admiral had planned for. On Terra, children grew up hearing stories of the great ship. Families pointed to the sky at night, telling their young ones that a guardian was being born above them. It became a symbol, not only for soldiers but for every person who dreamed of freedom. The very thought of the Resolute gave strength to those who feared the Dominion's return. When the Dominion finally heard enough reports to take the rumor seriously, debates began in the council. Some called for immediate action to crush Terra before the ship was complete. Others warned that rushing fleets into battle without preparation could lead to another humiliation. Pride clashed with fear, and fear clashed with arrogance. As the debates continued, rebellions began to stir on distant worlds. The stories of Terra's resistance had already inspired hope, but the idea of a massive battleship built by humans gave courage to the oppressed. On colony after colony, whispers of rebellion grew into quiet meetings. The Dominion had ruled by fear, but fear was beginning to break. In the halls of power, the Emperor himself dismissed the idea of the Resolute. He claimed it was a fantasy meant to frighten his admirals. Yet even as he spoke, he ordered greater fleets to gather near the Terran frontier. His pride would not allow the rumor to spread unchecked. Back on Terra, the humans watched the stars and prepared. They knew the Dominion would not wait forever. They knew the Empire would come with greater force, greater numbers, and greater rage. But they also knew that the day would come when the Resolute would rise from the shipyards, completed and ready to fight. The rumor of the battleship was no longer just a whisper. It had become a story that spread across the galaxy. To some it was a nightmare. To others it was a spark of hope. To the humans, it was the future. And in the silence of space, the great frame of the Resolute grew larger each day. It stood like a challenge to the Dominion, waiting for the moment when it would take its first step into battle. The galaxy did not yet know it, but the balance of power was beginning to shift. A single world, once overlooked and dismissed, was preparing to build a weapon that would change history. The Dominion had laughed at Terra before. Soon, they would not be laughing. The day finally came when the shadows of rumor turned into the weight of truth. After years of planning, building, and sacrifice, the Resolute was ready to leave its docks. From the surface of Terra, millions of eyes looked toward the heavens as the shipyards glowed with power. The ship was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It was vast, stretching across the void like a city in motion. Its armored hull was black as night, its surface lined with weapons and shields that gleamed in the starlight. It was not just a battleship, but a fortress among the stars. When it moved, it did so with the grace of something alive, as if the very void bowed before its presence. The humans had poured their hearts into this vessel. Soldiers stood ready in its halls, engineers monitored every system, and commanders prepared for the battles to come. For them, the Resolute was more than steel. It was hope, unity, and the promise that humanity would never bow. The Dominion had not remained idle. Word of the ship's construction had spread too far to ignore. Determined to crush Terra before the battleship could shift the balance, the Council dispatched a fleet of 50 warships under the command of Admiral Thurok. Thurok was chosen for his loyalty, not his imagination. He believed that numbers alone would guarantee victory. The fleet arrived at the edge of Terra's system with confidence. 50 Dominion warships filled the stars, their banners shining, their weapons ready. Thurok's voice carried across the void as he announced that the humans would finally be punished for their arrogance. To him, Terra's resistance was nothing more than a delay in the Empire's endless march. But the Dominion had arrived too late. As their sensors scanned the system, they caught sight of something vast moving from the shipyards. Slowly, with power that shook the void, the Resolute emerged. Silence fell across the Dominion fleet. Even the most hardened captains felt their breath catch. The size of the ship was beyond belief. It dwarfed their cruisers and outshone their carriers. Its weapons bristled across its hull, glowing with a strange energy that no one recognized. Admiral Thurok tried to laugh, but his voice shook. He called it a trick, a fragile shell meant to frighten them. He ordered his fleet forward. Dominion warships spread out, weapons charging, engines burning as they prepared to swarm the massive vessel. Then the Resolute fired. A single beam of energy cut through the darkness, striking a Dominion cruiser. The ship did not explode in a burst of flames. Instead, it vanished in a flash, torn apart by a weapon the fleet had never faced. Panic spread through the Dominion ranks. Another beam followed, then another. With each strike, another Dominion ship was destroyed. The humans aboard the Resolute fought with precision. Their commanders gave calm orders, their gunners targeted weak points, and their pilots coordinated with smaller ships that darted among the Dominion fleet. The great battleship was not alone. It moved with its escorts like a predator surrounded by swift hunters. Admiral Thurick tried to rally his forces. He ordered all ships to concentrate fire on the Resolute. Hundreds of weapons struck its shields, but the massive ship held firm. Its armor glowed with heat, but it did not falter. Slowly, with steady purpose, it advanced through the storm. One by one, Dominion ships fell. The humans showed no hesitation. Every shot was deliberate, every strike counted. The fleet that had come to crush Terra was being shattered before the eyes of its own crews. On the ground below, the people of Terra watched in awe as the battle unfolded. They saw the black shape of their guardian moving with unstoppable power. They saw Dominion ships burning in the sky, their wreckage falling like shooting stars. For the first time, they did not fear the future. They believed in victory. By the end of the battle, only fragments of the Dominion fleet remained. Admiral Thurick's flagship limped away, shields failing, engines broken. He fled into hyperspace, carrying with him the memory of a defeat he could never erase. The survivors spread the story across the Empire. They spoke of a battleship that could not be challenged, of a world that had defied the Dominion, and of humans who had built the impossible. The name of the Resolute became a shadow in every council chamber and a nightmare in every fleet. For the humans, it was the beginning of something greater. They had shown the galaxy that they were not weak, not primitive, and not to be ignored. The arrival of their Leviathan had shattered the illusion of Dominion invincibility. The Empire had believed it could never fall. Now it faced an enemy unlike any it had ever known. And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy trembled with the promise of change. The Dominion had never faced such defeat. Their fleet, once proud and feared, had been destroyed by a single human battleship. Across the Empire, whispers of Terra's power spread like wildfire. Where once fear had ruled, doubt now took root. The legend of the Resolute became more than a story. It became a symbol, a challenge to the Empire itself. On the worlds under Dominion control, people listened in secret. Farmers, merchants, soldiers, and scholars all had grown tired of the heavy hand of the Dominion. For generations, obedience had been enforced by fear, but now the humans had shown that even the greatest power could be broken. Rebellion no longer seemed impossible. Small uprisings began first. Workers refused orders on mining planets. Local commanders hesitated to follow strict commands. In hidden colonies, secret councils gathered. The story of the Resolute and the humans who fought without fear became a spark. It gave courage to those who had long been silent. Meanwhile, the Dominion scrambled to respond. Their governors demanded reinforcements, fleets were recalled from distant systems, and councils debated harsh measures. Yet every delay, every mistake, showed the weakness that Terra had revealed. The Empire had grown vast and rigid. It could move quickly in battles of numbers, but it could not adapt to the determination of a people fighting for survival. Humans did not stop at their victories in space. On Terra, they trained more ships and more crews. Engineers continued to study the wreckage of Dominion ships, improving designs and defenses. Scientists experimented with new weapons. Every lesson from the past battle made the humans stronger, smarter, and more prepared for the next attack. The Dominion fleet sent across the stars were met with resistance at every turn. Smaller human forces harassed supply lines and cut off communications. Planets that had once been loyal to the Empire began to question their allegiance. Rebellion spread like a shadow across the outer systems, and the Dominion could not contain it. On one distant colony, soldiers refused orders to attack a neighboring world. They spoke of Terra, of the humans who had resisted, and of the battleship that could not be defeated. They decided instead to join the rebellion. In another system, a governor abandoned his post when local citizens demanded freedom. These were small acts, but together they were powerful. The Dominion's control was cracking. Back on Terra, the humans observed the unrest with careful eyes. They knew the galaxy was changing. Each rebellion, each act of defiance, weakened the Dominion without costing their own people lives. Humans understood strategy in ways that went beyond force. They inspired hope, and hope could move entire worlds. In the Dominion capital, panic began to spread. The Emperor and his council realized that their empire, built on fear and obedience, was no longer unshakable. Reports of revolts and destroyed fleets filled their chambers. Admirals who had once spoken with confidence now whispered with worry. They had underestimated a single world and its people, and the mistake could not be reversed. The humans of Terra, however, did not celebrate the collapse of the empire. They knew that victory would not come from luck or fear alone. They prepared carefully, striking where needed and encouraging rebellion where possible. Their efforts were disciplined and purposeful. Every victory was a step toward freedom, not an act of cruelty. In space, the remaining Dominion fleets hesitated. They moved more slowly, fearing ambushes and unknown tactics. In communications, officers argued about strategy and feared human ingenuity. The reputation of the Resolute and its human crew had spread so far that even experienced commanders now questioned their orders. By the time a full year had passed since the Resolute first appeared, the Dominion Empire was beginning to collapse from within. Systems once loyal were now free. Ships once ready for war were scattered or destroyed. Colonies declared independence, pledging support to Terra and its people. The fear that had held the empire together was gone, replaced by hope for freedom. On Terra, the humans watched the galaxy change. They understood that their battles had inspired something larger than themselves. The collapse of the Dominion was not complete, but it was underway. The empire that had seemed unstoppable was now vulnerable. The humans had proven a simple truth: courage, unity, and determination could overcome even the greatest power. The galaxy had learned that no empire, no matter how vast, could ignore a people willing to fight for freedom. And as the systems rose in rebellion, as fleets faltered and colonies declared independence, the humans prepared for what was next. They knew the Dominion would not surrender easily. But now, the balance of power had shifted. The collapse of the empire had begun, and the humans of Terra would lead the way. The galaxy had changed forever. The Kether Emperor could not ignore the chaos any longer. Reports from distant worlds arrived constantly, each one worse than the last. Colonies were breaking away, fleets were being destroyed, and the legend of the Resolute had spread across the stars. For centuries, the empire had seemed eternal. Now, it trembled. In the capital, the emperor summoned his most loyal admirals. The council chambers, once filled with certainty, were tense. Advisors whispered, some in fear, others in anger. The emperor spoke with a voice that demanded attention. He declared that the Dominion would not fall. They would fight, and the galaxy would remember the power of the empire. A plan was set. The greatest fleet ever assembled by the Dominion would gather near Terra's system. Hundreds of ships, including the largest warships, carriers, and missile platforms, were assigned to the task. The Emperor intended to crush Terra in a single decisive strike. Victory would be absolute, or the Empire would fall. Admiral Thuruk, who had survived the first battle against the Resolute, was placed in command. He had learned caution from his previous failure, but he still believed that sheer numbers would win the day. The fleet moved with precision, each ship ready to obey every order. They expected humans to resist, but they believed resistance could be broken. On Terra, the humans prepared. They had expected this moment. The Resolute was fully operational, its weapons charged, and its crews trained for months. Smaller Terran ships flitted among the fleet, practicing maneuvers and coordinating strikes. The humans did not fear the numbers of the enemy. They had learned to turn disadvantage into strength, to use courage and unity as weapons. When the Dominion fleet appeared in orbit, it seemed overwhelming. Hundreds of warships filled the sky, their weapons glowing, engines roaring. Admiral Thurick gave the order to attack. Lasers and missiles filled space as the first waves of Dominion ships surged forward. But the Resolute moved with purpose. Its massive hull absorbed attacks that would have destroyed smaller vessels. Its weapons struck with precision, targeting weak points and eliminating key threats. The humans on board coordinated every move, reacting faster than the Dominion could anticipate. Smaller Terran ships darted in and out of the enemy formation, disrupting supply lines and disabling key weapons platforms. Each attack was calculated, each strike meant to weaken the enemy without overextending the human forces. The Dominion fleet, though vast, struggled to maintain order. Confusion spread, and panic followed. Admiral Thurick watched as ships under his command were destroyed one by one. He tried to rally them, giving orders to regroup and concentrate fire, but the humans anticipated every move. The Resolute advanced through the enemy, unstoppable and relentless. The Emperor, observing the battle from the capital, grew furious. He demanded that his fleet focus all power on the Terran flagship. Hundreds of ships concentrated their fire, hoping to overwhelm it. Massive beams struck its shields, missiles collided with its armor, and fighters swarmed its decks. But the Resolute held firm. Its shields absorbed the impact, and its weapons tore through the enemy ranks. As the battle raged, other human forces struck at the Dominion from unexpected directions. Rebellion in outer systems synchronized attacks with Terra's fleet, cutting off reinforcements and supply lines. The empire that had once seemed invincible was now surrounded by defiance. Every victory of the humans inspired more uprisings. In the final moments, the Emperor watched helplessly as his flagship came under fire. The Resolute struck with unmatched precision. The enormous Dominion ship broke apart in flames, leaving the Emperor's fleet without leadership. Confusion spread rapidly. Ships turned and fled, some surrendering to humans they had once considered inferior. The Emperor realized that the age of the Dominion was ending. His empire, built on fear, obedience, and power, could not survive against a people who fought with courage, unity, and determination. He had underestimated the humans, and that mistake had cost him everything. On Terra, the humans did not celebrate with arrogance. They had defended their home and inspired hope across the galaxy, but they understood the responsibility that came with power. The Resolute stood in orbit, its massive frame a symbol of defiance and protection. Around it, smaller human ships repaired and prepared for what might come next. The galaxy had witnessed a turning point. The greatest empire in history had faced its first true defeat. Humanity, once overlooked and underestimated, had shown that courage and determination could challenge even the strongest power. The Kether Emperor had fought with all he had, but it was not enough. The empire was crumbling, and the humans of Terra were leading the way. A new era was beginning, one where fear no longer ruled, and hope could rise even in the darkest corners of the galaxy. And in that moment, as the Dominion fleet scattered and the stars grew quiet after the battle, humanity's strength and unity became a legend that the galaxy would never forget. The smoke of battle still hung across the stars. The Dominion, once feared across half the galaxy, had been broken. Colonies that had once obeyed without question now celebrated their freedom. Fleets that had followed orders without hesitation were scattered or surrendered. The galaxy was waking to a new reality, one shaped by the courage and unity of humanity. On Terra, the people gathered in the streets, on the hills, and near the shipyards. Families, soldiers, engineers, and children looked up at the sky where the Resolute hovered. Its massive black hull reflected the sunlight, and its weapons, though still armed, remained silent. For many, it was not just a machine. It was a guardian, a symbol that the humans of Terra could achieve the impossible. Leaders of Terra moved quickly. They knew that victory had not yet ended. Though the Dominion's power was broken, remnants of its fleets and scattered governors could still regroup. Communication lines were established with newly independent worlds. Alliances were formed with species that had once served under the Dominion, inspired by Terra's defiance and success. The humans of Terra were careful to offer protection, not domination. They had learned that freedom must be respected to be true. Across the galaxy, the story of the Resolute inspired hope. On distant colonies, people celebrated their liberation and worked to rebuild their worlds. On former Dominion warships, crews mutinied and pledged allegiance to Terra. Even those who had served the Empire for generations saw that the human way, unity, courage, and determination was a path worth following. In orbit above Terra, the Resolute prepared for patrols. Its crew maintained constant vigilance, not because they feared attack, but because they understood responsibility. They had shown the galaxy what humans could achieve. They had defended their home, protected countless lives, and reminded everyone that no power, however mighty, could suppress the will of a determined people. The Emperor of the Dominion had fled to the outer reaches of space, powerless and alone. His once grand fleet was gone, scattered across the galaxy. His empire, built over centuries, had crumbled in a single year. The humans of Terra had not only defended their home, they had reshaped the balance of power in the stars. The people of Terra did not take pride in destruction. They honored the lives lost in the battles, remembering those who had fought bravely and given everything for freedom. Memorials were built on planets, in space stations, and in the hearts of families. The story of the first great battle against the Dominion became a teaching lesson for future generations. Courage, unity, and perseverance were values to be remembered, not just victories to be celebrated. Meanwhile, the galaxy began to change. Former colonies formed councils to govern themselves. New trade routes were opened. Knowledge, art, and science spread freely where fear had once ruled. Humans from Terra shared technology and expertise, but they did so with respect and fairness. They were no conquerors. They were leaders who led by example. Some feared that the Dominion might rise again. There were whispers in hidden corners of the galaxy, of fleets gathering secretly, of old governors planning revenge. But the humans were ready. They had learned the lessons of war, of strategy, and of unity. And they had the Resolute, a symbol of human ingenuity and strength, ready to defend freedom wherever it was threatened. On Terra, the leaders gathered to discuss the future. They spoke of exploration, of new colonies, and of helping others achieve freedom without war. They understood that their victory against the Dominion was not just a personal triumph. It was proof that even in a galaxy of mighty empires, courage and determination could shape destiny. Children looked at the stars and dreamed of the adventures that awaited them. They spoke of ships like the Resolute, of brave crews, and of worlds that were now free. Stories were told in schools, in homes, and in gatherings across the planets. The legend of Terra's people grew, not as conquerors, but as heroes who had stood for what was right. And so a new dawn arrived for the galaxy. The Kether Dominion, once unstoppable, had fallen. Humanity, once underestimated and overlooked, had proven that courage, unity, and intelligence could overcome even the greatest power. The stars were no longer ruled by fear. They belonged to all who wished to reach for them. The Resolute glided through the void, a silent reminder of what humans could achieve. Terra's people looked to the future with hope. They knew that challenges would come, but they also knew that they had the strength, the unity, and the spirit to face whatever the galaxy could throw at them. The galaxy had learned a simple truth. Empires may rise, but they can fall. And humanity, determined and united, would never be ignored again. The new era had begun, and the light of freedom spread across the stars.